welcome back. How about that?
Good to be back, man. I was sharing with the group earlier, had an opportunity to come into the stadium with our team at McNeese, and coming through the tunnel and walking onto the field, and it's going to sound weird to you guys, but just the smell of the grass and looking in the stadium, and this is pregame. It was validation that there's no place like Death Valley, there's no place like this stadium, and until you've been here and then left and gone away, I think you can have a real appreciation of it and for what it is. And even in that moment, you deep down just think maybe one day in some capacity we'll have an opportunity to be back here in such a magical, mystical place inside of this concrete stadium. And so when the opportunity presented itself, it was one that certainly we had to take serious consideration of, even though I was a head coach at another place, with the opportunity to come back here, and the vision of where the program was going with Coach Kelly was one that was very difficult to pass up.
How did he sell you? Did he call it a reset?
No, you know what? He shared his vision. We met for several hours, and we talked about life. We shared who we were as husbands, as fathers, as coaches. We got into some ball, and after probably 3-4 hours, you knew there's a reason why this guy is one of the winningest coaches in this decade. There's a reason why he's been so successful and the all-time winningest coach at Notre Dame, why he won at Cincinnati, why he won at Grand Valley, why he won at all these places. And so there's a yearning to want to continue to grow professionally. And I just thought that was something we could do here. We can continue to grow professionally under Coach Kelly with his vision and what he's going to do with our program.
When you came back, I think people just assumed that you were going to be the recruiting coordinator.
Yeah.
And talking to Coach Polian yesterday,
Yeah.
he said, look, Frank's going to tell me about Louisiana and the nooks and crannies and all that, and I'm going to lean on him. How are you two guys going to work together to
It's been fantastic. He's the thing about our staff, they're consummate pros. You walk into that building and as a group, we don't all have a lot of experience with each other. But when you're a pro about your job, it bodes well because you're going to do what needs to be done because you're a self-starter. You know how to do it. And so many of us have been coordinators, have been head coach, have won national championships and Super Bowls and conference championships. And so it's truly, he's assembled an all-star staff. And so guys go about doing their business and complement one another without ego. And so in regard to Coach Polian, he's a stud. I enjoy him, spend quality time with him. And when it's time for recruiting and he needs help, hey, Coach, how should I do this? Or what do you think about this? And then there's some things, that they've done. Coach Kelly has done at Notre Dame in places, and he's been with them for the last decade or so that fits perfectly in what we're trying to accomplish. And so for me, there's no ego. For him, there's no ego. We're in for one reason, and that's for LSU and to help us attain what we're trying to accomplish. And it's worked very well.
John Emery seems to be a big X factor on what's going to happen next year.
Mm-hmm.
5-star recruit, has shown flashes but not been consistent. Is he on path to be back and help next year?
Yeah, Tuesday, Jeremy Hill came by and just talked about the standard, about this room, and the men he sat in that room with, and all of them that played in the National Football League during his time. And last Tuesday, Leonard came by and he met with the room and talked to him about his experience and all of the guys in that room. And the reality of iron sharpening iron, and I say this as respectfully as I can, but before Joe Burrow, there was Billy Cannon. All right, and you look at the great ones, we were biasly, I would say, RBU before we were anything else. When you talk about Billy Cannon, when you talk about Dalton Hilliard, when you talk about Sammy and Gary James and on and on and on and on. And just in our short window, sharing with them, the Charles Scott, the Trendon, the Keelan, the Spencer, the Richard Murphy, the Stephen Ridley, the Alfred Blue, the Spencer Ware, the Michael Ford. And, I mean, it just was continuous of guys that played at an extremely high level that were on the same team. We had 4 and 5 running backs in one room that became professionals at some point or another within their career. And that's our standard. We got to get back to that. I would say, we'd have conversation, and you guys may have asked me this, who's going to start this week? Don't matter. They all bite. They all bite. Any one of them we put in there, they're going to play, and they're going to play well. And they continue that way through the time there. So we want to continue to foster that in our room. I think not only John Emery, but we have other guys in that room that have that same thing about themselves. But I think it's important for them to be able to understand the culture and what's been done in that running back room for so many years here, consistently for so long. And so we just want to be able to get back to our winning ways and take care of our room and represent ourselves well in the classroom, in the community, and on the field.
Frank, can you tell us a little bit about Noah Kane, obviously,
Yeah.
signing him out of the portal, bringing him back home? Obviously,
Yeah.
that was a recruitment many years ago. That was a wild one.
Yes.
In LSU's favor.
So probably he on his phone he had a picture of me breaking him down at camp. He was 11 or 12 years old. All right, and so even then he was bigger than most of them at that age. And when they would come to camp, Leonard and those guys were a few years older, and so he'd come to youth camp, but he'd stay. His dad lives here, so he'd stay in town, and he'd come back to high school camp, and I'd let him come with the big boys. So he's very familiar with the history of it. And what happens is kind of what I shared, even when you're from here and sometimes you go away and come back. I walked into that stadium with Noah Kane on his recruiting visits, and tears came down his eyes as he was filled with emotions and said, "This is what I've always wanted. This is my dream that's going to become a reality, and we'll get it done together." And we rejoiced in that moment. It was a very emotional time for him in perspective, in a world of NILs, in the world of, can I have this, do I want that? He just wanted to be at LSU. And that's special. There's something to be said for that. So he'll be in a big compliment to those guys in the room. And we'll continue to recruit at a high level in that room.
You talked about RBU and all the dudes, and I was thinking earlier, there was a real commitment to the run game when you were here last.
Yeah.
That maybe we haven't seen. It's because the offenses differ, I know. But have you had those conversations with Brian about staying committed to a run game, or utilizing backs?
I think that's part of his DNA. That's the compliment of being here. I don't have to sell him on that because he knows what wins championships, and he's done it consistently for so many years. No different than Mike and what they did at Cincinnati. And so I think that is something that's understood and how our approach will be. And then we're very fortunate because as we run the ball, the passing game, just to have Cortez Hankton, to have Joe Sloan and those guys here from a passing perspective. I mean, talking about a guy who just won a national championship, right? And just lit it up with his expertise in the passing game schematically that adds value to us will be phenomenal. So I think we have an all-star staff. I think we have some good players on our team. I think we'll continue to get better with our recruiting class, and I think we'll work in unison, in harmony to be able to get that done.
Coach, you're known as an elite recruiter, but to
Yeah.
hear Coach Kelly say that you're
Yeah.
more than that, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, that surprised you? You know what? I've always prided myself on being very thorough in every one of those aspects. Those guys become successful and they're able. So when Jeremy and Leonard came and they're talking to the team, they talk to our current players about being a student of the game. Because at some point, to be a first rounder, to be a second rounder, you're going to stand in front of an organization and You'll have to get on that board and be a clinician for a moment and understanding schematically what's trying to get accomplished. And the reason why a guy like Alfred Blue could rush for 300 yards and get hurt and still get drafted is because of his knowledge and his training that has been bestowed upon him. And so we're teachers before we're anything else. I'm a teacher before anything else. I was a science teacher. So we teach. And so and the recruiting is just a byproduct of it as well, complementing it. So, but it was gratifying.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, Brian.